The stars were too quiet. Out there, above the smoldering ruins of Darren 4, the sky flickered with the cold shine of dying satellites. Smoke crawled from the cracks of the continent below, like blood from a corpse. Charred steel ribs of alien cities pierced the ash-choked clouds, hollow and broken. Commander Riven stood at the edge of the scorched ridge, his boots sunk into black glass, sand melted during orbital fire. The weight of the rifle across his chest wasn't what burdened him. It was the silence, the absolute, suffocating silence. No screams, no cries, no resistance. He adjusted the strap, glancing at the small squad moving through the remains of what the locals used to call Holy District 3. Their gods had not come. Humanity did. We weren't supposed to win. That's what the Federation had told them. That Earth was primitive. Violent. Weak. We proved them right. But not in the way they expected. Riven raised his hand, fist clenched. The squad froze. Dust drifted through collapsed archways ahead. Faint movement. Heat signatures small. Maybe survivors. Maybe traps. He clicked his comm once. No words. Just signal. Seth flanked right, low, silent. Smoke shifted around him like breath. No noise but the crunch of ash under his armor. The Durrani had mocked Earth for centuries. Spoke of us like feral things. War beasts with no culture, no soul, just fists and fire. They weren't wrong. But they never imagined fists could reach stars. That fire could burn across galaxies. Riven moved forward. Rifle up, his visor adjusted to thermal. 2 bodies, huddled. Civilian size. Children, maybe. They wouldn't last another night in the cold. He lowered the barrel. Turned away. Clear, he said, voice dry. No orders to help. Just orders to clear. He didn't look back. Behind him, the sky rumbled. One of the orbitals was still falling, a slow descent, fire trailing across the atmosphere like a dying god, debris from the Federation's once proud fleet. They used to say no race could breach their defense grid. Earth cracked it in 4 hours. The price was in blood. Whole battalions burned in the first wave. But humanity didn't retreat. They adapted, got colder, smarter, meaner. Every world we touched turned silent within days. Riven heard the low thrum of gunships overhead, black silhouettes against the purple dusk. No banners, no victory music, just the hum of something inevitable. He pressed a finger to his comm. Zone 8 secure, moving to extraction. The voice that responded was flat, not even a name. Just numbers. Copy. Proceed. No medals, no honor, only continuation. They used to laugh when they spoke of Earth. Primitive, they called us. Unrefined. Not worthy of the stars. Now they watch their skies like prey watches the grass. Riven reached the ridge again. Looked out. Saw the same thing he always saw. Dust, silence, the bones of a civilization that thought they were above us. He'd seen too many. 52 worlds, all different, all arrogant, all ash now. Seth stopped beside him. Another world? Riven didn't answer, just stared at the horizon where the sun died behind the black smoke. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about silence, about making sure they never laughed again. Riven rode in silence. The gunship's interior was dark, humming with low-frequency tremors. Dust still clung to his armor, black soot, fine as powdered bone. Across from him, Seth sat hunched over, his head against the steel wall, helmet in his lap. Eyes open. Always open. No one slept between deployments, not really. The hum of the engines filled the void where conversation should have been. Nobody talked anymore. Not since the 30th world. That was the one where an entire division walked through a city that had already surrendered, and still left it burning behind them. Orders were orders. Riven leaned back, metal creaking under the bulk of his gear. The straps dug into his shoulders. His body ached in places he stopped noticing. Pain became ambient. Background noise. The ship banked left. Fast. Sudden. Gravity shifted. He braced instinctively. Outside the small viewport, a blue-gray planet loomed ahead. Storm-covered, its surface streaked with lightning. The atmosphere boiled with electrical pulses. Vecra 2. Federation Archive once labeled it untouchable. Strategic fortress, ground-to-space artillery nests, orbit shield arrays, automated kill zones. No species had ever broken the upper sky. Until today. Until Earth. The gunship rattled as flak peppered the outer shell. Bright white flashes illuminated the interior in brief bursts, like camera shutters. Riven didn't flinch. No one did. Death was always close now. So close it stopped feeling like a threat. Seth's voice came low, gravel, thick. They still think we're afraid. Riven looked at him, didn't answer, didn't need to. He knew what Seth meant, even after 52 worlds, even after orbital strikes, mass gravity collapses, kinetic rods falling from the void, and quiet black ships descending like executioners. They still thought Earth feared pain, feared loss. They didn't understand. We were born from pain, raised in a world that devours its own. We built civilizations over mass graves and called them cities. They thought their unity made them strong. Ours made us brutal. Another burst. The ship dropped altitude. Everyone held steady, eyes forward, breathing slow. The crew chief gave the signal. 2 fingers, 1 second pause, fist, 10 seconds to drop. Riven stood, gripped the bar above. His boots locked. The ramp opened. Sound exploded in, wind like knives, rain that hissed against armor like acid. Sky cracked open with flashes of blue fire. In the distance, orbital platforms bled flame, falling like sick stars. The ground came fast. The gunship hovered for 3 seconds. Long enough for a squad to drop. Not a heartbeat longer. Boots hit mud. Heavy. Wet. Slippery. The second Riven's feet touched soil, he was moving. No formation calls. No barking orders. They didn't operate like the old armies anymore. Every soldier was trained to be a commander. Every step a plan. Thunder rolled above. Anti-air fire painted the sky. Red tracers curved overhead like death scribbling across the stars. Ahead, a ridge. Defense towers. Federation standard. Dual plasma turrets, layered shields, rapid tracking. Old models. They'd seen them before. Still deadly. He raised his left hand. 2 fingers forward. Seth peeled right. Vano and Rig to the left. Riven advanced straight. No words. Just movement. Mud splashed. Rain distorted vision. The visor flickered twice before correcting. He saw the sentries. Glimmering shadows beneath the gun posts. Standard Federation armor. Sleek, chromed, faceless. They were fast, but not human fast. They aimed. Riven dropped, rolled, fired 3 times. 2 center mass. 1 headshot. The helmet popped like a cracked egg. Blood misted. The body jerked backward. Seth's rifle barked once. Another sentry folded at the knees. Silent death. They were inside the perimeter before the alarm finished sounding. The first real resistance came from the bunker gate. Heavy plasma shields shimmered blue under the rain. A squad of Fed elites moved to intercept. 6 of them. High ranks. White armor. They hesitated when they saw the humans. Just a flicker. That was enough. Riven surged forward. Bullet storm. Controlled. No waste. His rounds tore through 1, then 2. The third fired back. Riven dropped, rolled under the beam, and fired up through the jawplate. Seth gutted one with a short blade between the ribs. Up close. Clean. Vano and Rig flanked the last. Didn't shoot. Just beat him down. boots and fists until the helmet split open, until the ground soaked red. Riven stood over the last corpse, looked at the face beneath the cracked mask. Not a monster. Just a boy. Young. Eyes still wide with the shock of death. Didn't matter. He pressed his hand to the bunker door console. Plasma locks hissed. Opened. Inside, the bunker stank of ozone and heat. Tech panels blinked red. Sirens echoed down long hallways. Footsteps. Screams. They moved room to room. No mercy, no hesitation. This wasn't invasion. This was erasure. In the command center, an officer begged, fell to his knees. In Federation tongue, he wept, asked why. Riven didn't answer. Just shot him through the chest. Not out of hate, out of silence, the kind that follows extinction. They uploaded the data from the console, fed troop deployments, orbital patterns, reinforcement timelines, everything. When Riven looked at the screen, he saw a familiar name. Echelon Prime Fleet. Redeployment en route. Origin, Lyrix Command. His stomach turned cold. Lyrix was Earth's first contact site. The one where they laughed, where they pointed at our translators and mocked our syntax, where they asked if humans still used fire to cook, where they bombed a diplomatic envoy in front of a live stream and called it training exercise failure. He remembered that footage. He remembered the ambassador choking in the dust. No military action followed. Not then. Earth waited, watched, listened, built. Now Lyrix would burn. Seth looked over his shoulder. What is it? Riven just stared. Next target. He copied the data, sent the kill code to orbit. 10 seconds later, the sky screamed. A kinetic rod, 12 tons of tungsten wrapped in plasma sheath, punched through the defense bunker from above. No explosion. Just implosion. The sound was like God snapping his fingers. And then silence again. Riven walked out through smoke, his squad behind him. They didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. Their job wasn't to inspire, it was to erase. Vecra, too, was falling. You could smell it in the soil. You could feel it in the rain. Like the planet itself was trying to wash away the shame of defeat. But it wouldn't work. Nothing washes off what humanity brings. They didn't conquer like others, didn't install puppet regimes, didn't set up colonies. They simply removed. Removed resistance, removed power, removed memory. The enemy never knew who to fear. That was the secret. Humans didn't wear symbols, didn't sign declarations. They just arrived. Fought, left silence behind. Riven stood at the extraction point. Gunship landing again, wind blasting outward, rain now mixing with black soot from burning factories in the valley below. He looked up once more. The sky was turning black again. Another world, another reminder that Earth was listening, watching, counting. And when they were done, there would be no one left to laugh. The transport stank of carbon scoring and dried blood. Riven sat alone near the tail section, back straight, weapon resting against his leg like it was part of him. He didn't move when the crew chief sealed the doors, didn't glance at the pilots. His eyes were locked on the far wall of the bay, but he wasn't seeing it. He was watching Lyrix burn. Not yet, but soon. Seth sat across from him again, same spot as always. He didn't speak either, just cleaned his rifle with slow mechanical movements, his face half lit by the amber glow of emergency lights lining the inner hull. They were heading to forward staging point K9, a floating platform suspended in the upper orbit of a shattered moon near Lyrix Prime. Temporary base. One night stay. Then the final push. This would be the last time they slept before they stepped onto the world that started all this. before Earth took back its dignity one crater at a time. Riven's hand twitched, not from nerves, from memory. He remembered the footage. That grainy feed from the Lyric's summit, Earth's first official diplomatic outreach beyond the solar wall. The ambassador, standing tall in ceremonial armor, holding a gift, the last tree grown from the seed vault of Greenland. The Lyrixian Council had laughed, loudly, openly, mocked the tree as primitive life clinging to dirt. Then one of them walked forward, spat on the gift, and ordered their guards to fire. No warning, no chance, just smoke, and a body crumpled beside a shattered pot of green, and the entire galaxy watched. What did the other species say after that? Earth was emotional, Earth was backward, Earth was weak. They mistook grief for softness. Riven had been a conscript then. No rank, no squad, no name anyone remembered. But he'd seen that broadcast in a bunker beneath Iceland, and something in him had cracked. Not rage. Not hatred, just resolve. Earth never made another public speech after that, but they started building. In silence. The transport jolted as it entered K9's docking grid. External maglocks pulled the ship in like fingers closing around a throat. Riven stood. Seth followed. Neither spoke. When the ramp opened, the cold bite of artificial atmosphere rushed in. Sterile, pressurized, tasted like metal and recycled ash. The station was nothing but gray corridors and command stacks. No windows, no insignias, just war machines and human ghosts moving in unison. The man waiting at the end of the bay had the bearing of command. Tall, straight, but tired. His beard was trimmed close, gray in patches. His left arm was synthetic, sleek black with pale blue veins running down to steel fingertips. Commander Tarek. He didn't salute. He didn't speak right away, just looked Riven in the eye. "You ready?" he asked, voice gravel dragged across steel. Riven nodded once. Tarek turned and walked. They followed. "I lost 80 men on Duran 4, Tarek said, voice low. Saw orbital fire tear through hospitals. They didn't even hesitate." They passed a weapons rack, soldiers rearmed in silence, golems in human skin. "You know what the Lyrics are building on Prime?" he asked. Riven shook his head. Tarek stopped at a console, tapped twice. A 3D map flickered into life. A planetary surface, wide deserts, angular cities, defense rings spanning continents. But the center glowed. A tower, miles high. "Signal array," Tarek said. "Supposed to send a peace proposal to the rest of the galactic network." Seth scoffed. "After they killed our envoy?" "No," Tarek replied. "Because they killed our envoy." Silence stretched between them like a blade. "They're scared now," Tarek said. "Trying to rewrite history before we finish it for them." Riven leaned closer to the screen. "We're not letting them broadcast." Tarek's synthetic hand tapped the tower. "No, we're going to turn it off in front of them." They launched before sunrise. Not that Lyrics had one anymore. The planet was in twilight, permanent and thick, after orbital bombardments had cracked one of its moons 2 weeks prior. The dust cloud blanketed the atmosphere, casting the sky into a bruise-purple haze. No singing birds, no morning light, just the sound of thrusters cutting through poisoned air. Riven dropped first. Boots hit concrete, cracked and scarred. The city around him, Valeth, once glittered with silver towers and floating gardens. Now it stank of smoke and plasma rot. Every street bore the signs of resistance. Burned-out skiffs, civilian bodies, traces of their own security forces melted to walls from previous engagements. Humanity had landed 5 days ago, but they hadn't pushed the tower yet. They were waiting for Riven's unit, the Skywalkers. Not named by pride, named by their kill counts. They were the ones who went where orbital fire couldn't. The tower loomed ahead, piercing the clouds, cables dangling like metal roots into the earth, its tip lost in the dust-swollen sky, defended by the best the Lyrics had left. Riven didn't wait, didn't breathe deep, didn't think. He moved. Seth flanked him. The others followed. Each step closer brought heavier resistance. Lyrics enforcers moved in coordinated fire teams, gleaming armor, dual-wield energy glaives. They moved like dancers, but humanity fought like ghosts, silent, direct, unyielding. Riven's shots cracked like bone through air. He dropped 2 before the third even turned. Seth knifed one in the neck and used the body as a shield for the next. Up the tower they climbed, level by level. Smoke thickened. Resistance thinned. They were close. At floor 83, a Lyrics commander waited. Regal, proud, golden armor polished despite the ruin. He spoke in his tongue, a deep, throaty language. The translator barely kept up. "Your species is a plague," he said. "You do not build. You only consume." Riven leveled his rifle. The commander raised his chin. "Even now we die with honor." "No," Riven said. "You die forgotten." One shot. The commander's body crumpled, blood pooling at his feet, mixing with ash. They reached the control chamber. Circular, towering glass, screens surrounding the core uplink. The broadcast system was charging. 8 minutes until transmission. The Lyrics plan: show footage of surrender, frame themselves as victims, tell the galaxy Earth came without warning. That Earth was the monster. Riven walked to the console, looked at the blinking feed. Dozens of cameras aimed at them, already live, already streaming. He said nothing, just stared. Then he raised his weapon and fired into the console. Sparks erupted, the screen shattered, the power core shrieked as it overloaded. The broadcast died, the lie with it. Alarms howled. Outside, the final wave of Lyric soldiers swarmed the tower base. But it was too late. Riven turned to his team. "We hold until command drops the hammer." They took positions. Broken consoles for cover. Shattered glass underfoot. The smell of burnt metal choking the air. The first enemy breached the stairwell. Seth dropped him before his boots touched the floor. Then the flood came. Riven fired, reloaded, fired again. He moved like a machine, but his heart still beat slow, cold, steady. One of the humans fell. "Rig!" A plasma blade through the chest. No time to scream, just a gasp. Riven didn't flinch. Another fell. Vano, shot from behind. Still no pause. They held, minute by minute, until the sky turned black again. Not from smoke, from orbit. A human dreadnought moved into low atmosphere, engines roaring, shadow blotting out what little light remained. And then, silence, for one breath. Then the sky broke. A solar lance, pure kinetic fury wrapped in fire, dropped like judgment. It hit the tower's base. Riven stood motionless as the floor trembled. The Lyrics soldiers froze, looked up. Then the building began to fall. Riven clicked his comm. "Pull us!" A second later, hooks shot through the tower windows, grabbing the squad mid-collapse. Gunships pulled them clear as the spire cracked, crumbled, and sank into the earth with the weight of every sin they'd ever committed. From above, Lyrics Prime looked like it was weeping. Smoke. Fire. Silence. Another world. Another grave. Seth looked at Riven as they flew away, faces blackened, bodies bruised, eyes hollow. "You think they'll ever forget?" he asked. Riven didn't answer. He didn't need to, because the stars were already going quiet, one world at a time. The debriefing room was silent. No screens, no charts, no celebration. Just gray walls, a single steel table, and 4 soldiers who had crawled through the end of a dying world. Commander Riven stood in the corner, helmet at his side, visor cracked from the impact of falling debris. His armor still bore the black smears of Lyric's prime, soot, blood, and the fine dust of ground glass from the broadcast tower. His gloves creaked softly when he flexed his fingers. Across from him, Seth sat with a gauze wrap tight around his neck. Burned, but alive. He hadn't spoken since they were pulled from the airlift. Just cleaned his sidearm, stripped and rebuilt it over and over again like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. Tarek entered last, closed the bulkhead behind him. No salute, no protocol. His mechanical arm still smoked faintly from the interface heat back at K9, but his eyes were cold and clear. He dropped a data core on the table. It landed with a soft clunk. "This is it," he said. Everything the lyrics were going to send. The fake footage, the peace plea, their little act of innocence. No one moved. Seth finally broke the silence. "You want us to distribute it?" Tarek shook his head. "We're not giving the galaxy a damn thing. We're wiping it. All of it." Riven looked up. "They'll fill in the gaps themselves." "Exactly." Tarek's voice had iron under it. "Let them guess what we're capable of. Let them wonder what the lyrics did to deserve what they got." Riven stepped forward, picked up the data core, turned it in his hand. He thought of the ambassador, of the tree, of the broadcast tower falling through smoke. He placed the core back on the table, then crushed it with his boot. One press, a crack like glass under tension. Silence after. No backup, no files, no truth, only consequence. Tarek exhaled. "Good. There's a shift coming. Federation systems are in collapse. Border planets are going dark one by one. We're the storm now." Riven said nothing. He already knew. He could feel it in the silence, the way comms chatter had changed. Fewer patrols, more emergency signals, the kind of panic that came when people realized the old rules didn't apply anymore. He remembered what one of the Lyric's engineers whispered before she died, voice full of trembling disbelief. "But you're just humans." She said it like it was supposed to protect her. Raven watched her eyes dim and didn't respond. The galaxy forgot what humans were, what they survived, what they became when they stopped asking for peace and started preparing for extinction. They were remembering now. Tarek leaned over the table. "You're not done." Seth looked up. "New system," Tarek said. "Unregistered, fringe edge of the breach spiral, no maps, no laws. But the locals there, the Unari, they've been selling intel, feeding the Federation behind our backs." Riven's jaw tensed. Tarek continued. "They're not fighters, not like the lyrics. They're builders, traders. They think they're neutral." "They're not," Riven said. "No," Tarek agreed. "They picked a side when they sold Earth's troop movements 2 years ago. That leak cost us 15,000 lives on Arcanus Station." He paused. "Make it known. Earth sees everything." The jump to the breach spiral was cold and silent. Riven didn't sleep during warp. He never did. His eyes remained fixed on the black between the stars, jaw clenched, muscles coiled tight beneath armor that never came off anymore. Not really. Sleep had become a memory, like the warmth of fire, or the laughter of civilians, or the sound of a world not preparing to fall. Seth slept, if you could call it that. Head leaned back against the hull, mouth barely parted, twitching now and then like he was still fighting ghosts. When the ship dropped from warp, it hit turbulence like entering a storm. Unari 3 spun beneath them, a planet of massive oceans and floating cities made of gold and glass, elegant, fragile. The Unari themselves were soft-bodied bipeds, taller than humans, translucent skin, advanced tech woven into every part of their infrastructure, known for cultural diplomacy, cowards dressed in silk. They had no standing army, only shield generators and paid mercs. Most of their defenses were automated. Riven adjusted his gear. "We're not asking questions," he said flatly. "We land, we strike, we leave nothing standing." Seth nodded once. "Copy that." The ship dove. No stealth, no warning. The Unari would see them. That was the point. Let them know fear before fire. The gunship broke through their outer shield ring like a blade. Sirens lit the skyline. Towering structures tilted as the atmosphere cracked with kinetic pulses. Riven hit the ramp release before the ship even fully stopped. He dropped into the heart of the city with the grace of a predator. Boots on marble, rifles up, streets empty. At first. Then the screams started. Civilians scattered like insects, their thin limbs flashing in and out of shadow. Unari security drones hovered into view, but their AI couldn't process the assault fast enough. Riven fired 3 shots. Clean, center, mass. The drones sparked and fell. Seth swept left. Blasted through a glass corridor, spraying fire into a line of Unari guards who hadn't even drawn their weapons yet. They pushed toward the central node, the heart of the city's intelligence network. That's where the transmission logs would be, where they'd find proof of betrayal, proof for themselves, not for the galaxy, because Earth didn't ask for permission anymore, they just punished. The Unari's command hall looked like a temple, high pillars, soft lights, air that smelled of incense and ozone. Riven stepped over the corpses of a dozen technocrats, their robes stained red. In the center of the room was a platform, floating screens, a central server glowing with internal power. Seth accessed it. His fingers moved fast. Not a hacker, just a soldier trained to rip open data like rib cages. He found the files in 30 seconds. Encrypted, marked with old Federation tags, coordinates, troop logs, encryption keys. They'd sold Earth's position, twice. Seth looked up. They did it. Riven stared at the server. He didn't blink. He didn't speak. Then he fired 1 round into the terminal, silencing it forever. By nightfall, Unari 3 was in freefall. Their orbital satellites had been disabled. Their communications were jammed. Their security networks were bleeding. Riven stood at the top of the central tower, watching the city burn from above. Seth walked up behind him. "Orbital support is ready, just waiting on your word." Riven didn't speak, just stared down at the glow of their structures, fire reflecting in the smooth water like blood in glass. There were still people down there, not soldiers, not guilty, just people. But that's not what mattered. The Unari had chosen. They had helped the Federation draw Earth's blood. This wasn't justice. This was math. They burned Arcanus Station. Earth burned a world. Riven activated comms. "Confirm coordinates. Fire on my mark." He watched the first beam fall. The sky turned black again. In the end, there was silence. Always silence. That's what followed humanity now. Not speeches, not broadcasts, not treaties, just silence and the memory of fire. Riven sat in the gunship as it ascended from the burning ruins of Unari 3. Below him, another world vanished. Not from hatred, but from necessity, from memory, from the long, slow scream of a species that finally stopped apologizing. The starlight didn't reach here. In the grave of Sector 19, there was no light, no warmth, just frozen debris fields, shattered moon fragments, and the drifting corpses of forgotten fleets. This was where the old empires came to die. Riven stood at the edge of the observation bay aboard the Acheron, one of Earth's deep space dreadnoughts, black as obsidian and twice as silent. The glass was 3 inches thick, yet he still felt the cold bleed through, deeper than skin. Behind him, the crew moved like shadows. No laughter, no music, just systems checks, weapon diagnostics, and silence. War didn't sound like war anymore. It sounded like preparation. He watched the broken carcass of a Federation capital ship drift past. Its hull was split open like a rib cage, skeletal frames glinting in the void. Somewhere in there were still bodies, their screams lost in vacuum decades ago. Riven didn't look away, because this wasn't over. Not yet. Not until the last piece of the old order had burned. Tarek's voice came through the internal comms. Low. Controlled. Command intel confirmed. We've got movement on the edge of the Rigel cluster. Last Federation holdout. They call themselves the Ark Council. Riven closed his eyes for a second. The name was old. From before the wars, from the first days of contact, when humans still believed in diplomacy. The Ark Council had been a coalition. Lyrics, Unari, Solari, and others. They promised unity, promised peace, promised Earth a seat at the table. Then they shattered that table with kinetic strikes on Mars colonies and blamed radical factions. Then came the trade embargoes, then the assassinations, and finally, silence, until Earth stopped asking and started marching. Riven turned from the glass. Location? Ark Station. Deep orbit around Riel 7, Tarek replied. They've been hiding, shielded, cloaked, running silent ops and disinformation campaigns through neutral worlds. We just cracked their net 2 hours ago. How big? Riven asked. Massive, Tarek said. Thousands. Military, civilian, diplomats, all packed into one orbital platform. Thought no one would find them. They were wrong. Yes, Tarek said. They were. The jump to Rigel 7 was harder than most. The Acheron didn't blink out like smaller ships. It tore space open. It screamed across dimensions. You didn't ride the Acheron. You endured it. Riven sat strapped in the forward drop chamber. Helmet on. Visor dark. His heartbeat matched the ship's drive. Slow. Relentless. Unstoppable. Across from him, Seth prepped charges. Not standard breachers. These were atmospheric rippers, the kind that didn't just open doors, but tore pressure seals and collapsed entire levels. They weren't just breaching this station. They were ending it. You think they'll fight? Seth asked, barely audible over the hum. Riven stared into the black. They'll beg. He wasn't guessing. He knew the type. The kind who started wars with words and expected others to die for them. The kind who built palaces above mass graves. Who believed Earth would kneel again someday. They'd forgotten how Earth mourned. And how it remembered. The first breach came at 0423 local station time. Ark Station's hull screamed as 4 human drop pods smashed through the lower levels, anti-orbit weapons offline before the crew even woke up. Riven stepped through smoke and broken light. His boots clanging on titanium floors as alarms blared like the death cries of a dying god. The corridors were full of civilians, diplomats, scientists, families. Some froze, some ran, some knelt. Riven didn't raise his weapon. Not yet. They weren't the target. The command center was buried deep in the core, 16 levels down, protected by layers of auto turrets, shield doors, and a ring of elite Federation veterans. Didn't matter. They weren't Earth's soldiers, and they weren't ready. Riven's team moved like fire. Seth led the flank, Vic and Rami on rear cover, pushing through resistance that cracked the moment it saw them. These weren't warriors. These were relics. The first ring fell in 12 minutes. By the time they reached sub-level C, Federation brass had sealed the upper command bridge and begun evacuation procedures. Too late. Humanity didn't just come for the station. They came for the names. Seth breached the final blast door with a timed ripper. The explosion didn't echo. It swallowed. When the smoke cleared, Riven stepped through. Rifle up, movements smooth and exact. There were 4 inside, dressed in white. No armor, just silk and gold. Council members, the ones who made the decisions that killed billions. They didn't plead at first. They didn't scream. They tried diplomacy. "You don't understand," said one, a Solari with thin silver skin and gem-embedded arms. "We acted under pressure. The Federation was fracturing. We had to make difficult—" Riven shot him in the leg. The alien dropped, clutching the stump, howling as blood sprayed across polished marble. "You want to negotiate?" Riven said. "Negotiate with the dead." The others went quiet. Seth moved behind them, guns ready. No words. One of the humans in the group, old, pale, high-born by the look of his uniform, finally broke. "We never meant for it to go this far. Earth was never supposed to be part of this. We thought you'd adapt, fall in line." "You tried to bury us," Riven said, voice low. "You built your empire on our bones." "Earth was dangerous," the man spat. "Unstable, primitive. We protected the galaxy from your chaos." Riven stepped forward, looked him dead in the eye. "No." His hand didn't shake as he raised his pistol. "You protected yourselves. 1 shot. Clean. Then another. And another." When it was done, only silence remained. They planted the charges in the station's core. Not to destroy it all. Just enough. Just the parts that mattered. The control nodes. The data banks. The navigation systems. The heart. They wanted the galaxy to find the shell. To see the wreckage, the emptiness, the message. That Earth remembered. And Earth finishes what it starts. From the bridge of the Acheron, Riven watched Ark Station split open. A slow, deliberate rupture. Not a massive explosion, but a surgical death. A reminder. The stars behind it were cold and silent. Seth stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes heavy. "That was the last one," he said. Riven didn't answer. Not because he doubted it, but because he didn't believe in endings anymore. There was always another voice, another system, another whisper of resistance against Earth's rise. But now, those voices were dying. Not in battles, in fear. Because Earth didn't send armies. Earth sent silence, and silence was always followed by fire. There were no flags anymore, no crests, no oaths. No alliances. Just black ships and the cold whisper of booted feet on scorched ground. Riven stepped through the ash fields of Pallas, the wind dragging black dust in long horizontal lines across the valley, like the planet itself was weeping sideways. No color here, no green, no blue, just ash and ruin and steel. The remains of a city lay ahead, not bombed, not burned, eclipsed. One of Earth's kinetic pulses had struck the core, imploding the energy grid beneath the city's foundations. What was left sank 20 meters below surface level. It wasn't a battlefield. It was a message. Riven's squad moved behind him, rifles low, visors scanning. No resistance, no signals, not anymore. They were here for what came after. Cleanup, confirmation, the bodies, the silence. Palin 4 had been neutral. That's what the record said. But neutrality was a lie. When the Federation sent data probes through their ports, they didn't resist. When human prisoners were sold through their black markets, they turned away. When Earth asked, they denied everything. So Earth stopped asking. And now Riven walked through dust where children used to play. He didn't flinch, didn't justify. This was war, not for territory, not for control, but for memory, for what they did to Earth. At the crater's edge, Riven knelt. The ground still smoked faintly from the heat release. Beneath him were the fractured bones of a city. His fingers brushed the rim of a buried sign. Metal. Burned. The letters were half melted, but he could still read them. Consulate District. No arms beyond this point. A lie. It was always a lie. They said Earth was too angry, too volatile. They said Earth didn't understand peace, but every time Earth reached out, they cut off the hand. Now Earth reached with a fist, and they ran. Riven stood slowly, watching a dust devil twist across the crater. The air shimmered in the heat haze. Somewhere deeper in the city, scanners still pinged. Faint life signs. Not soldiers. Not council members. Survivors. Seth stepped beside him, visor blacked. Orders? Riven didn't answer right away. He just watched the wind move the ash. There were no more transmissions from Palin Command. No surrender flags, no calls for mercy. Just silence. Move in, Riven said. The remnants hid in the lower tunnels, old infrastructure layers, transit paths, cold storage vaults turned shelter. The kind of places that weren't made to hold life, just to preserve it. But the people inside still breathed. Still whispered. When Riven's boots hit the floor of the first tunnel, the air was thick with rot, oil, mold, old blood. A child ran across the hall ahead, skin gray with dust, hair knotted barefoot. He didn't raise his weapon. Not yet. Seth scanned the path ahead. 18 confirmed, mostly civilians. One heat source larger pacing, could be armed. Riven nodded. Non-compliant? Unknown, but they're not sending up flags. Of course they weren't. They'd hoped to hide in silence, thought humanity would sweep over the city and vanish like a storm. But Earth wasn't a storm anymore. It was gravity, and everything falls. The door to the main vault wasn't locked. They hadn't even bothered. Inside, rows of faces stared back, wide-eyed, pale. Most didn't move. A few rose to their feet, slow and shaking. Riven stepped in first. Seth followed, covering high. A man approached, old, thin, one eye milky from infection. His voice cracked when he spoke. We didn't fight you. Riven didn't blink. You didn't stop those who did. The man's lips trembled. We couldn't. You don't know what it was like. The Federation, they're gone. That doesn't change what they did to us. Riven took a slow step forward. No, it changes what we do to you. The silence returned. The heavy, choking kind that followed every human judgment. Please, the man whispered. We're just survivors. Riven lowered his rifle. He walked past the old man, through the crowd, through the stink of fear. At the far end of the shelter was a wall console, still powered, dim but working. He tapped in the coordinates, saw the logs, the movement, the data. They'd been hiding Federation operatives for years, moving them, housing them, shielding their escape from Earth's fleet. Quiet collaboration, just enough to be missed, but not forgotten. Riven closed the terminal. He turned to the people. You had choices, he said. You chose silence. The old man fell to his knees. Riven raised his hand. Seth didn't hesitate. Gas canisters rolled in, non-lethal, not for pain, for sleep. The kind of sleep you don't wake up from unless Earth decides you should. They left the vault sealed, air cycling on slow mode. No food, no light. They'd die before a week passed. Not by violence, by silence. It was cleaner this way. Humanity didn't need blood anymore. Not always. They had fear, they had memory, and they had gravity. Back on the ridge, Riven stared out across the crater again. He could feel the weight of it behind him, not the dead. The message. There were no banners, no broadcasts, but every world left behind by Earth said the same thing. You should have killed us when you had the chance. The ship returned at dusk, if you could call it that. Pallas had no sun anymore, just a dim orb behind layers of dust and death. As Riven stepped aboard, Tarek's voice met him through the internal comms. You're being reassigned. Riven didn't ask why. He knew. He'd felt it building. There was only one place left. Earth. They hadn't been back in years, not since the fleets left, not since the black ships rose. Earth wasn't home anymore. It was something else. The final world, the first wound, the place they bled from, the place they bled for. Riven stood in the transport bay as the blue curve of Earth rose ahead. Orbit slowly curved the edges, revealing the broken outlines of shattered satellites, ruined stations, debris fields stretching like scars across the sky. He exhaled. Slow. The clouds below swirled gray, oceans darker than he remembered, continents scorched and overgrown in places, steel and forest tangled like muscle and bone. He felt the ache in his chest before he knew what it was. Not emotion, instinct. This was where it started. This is what they'd laughed at, mocked, bombed. And now, Earth stood, alone, silent, surrounded by the echo of empires that once called her savage. Riven didn't speak as the dropship descended. He didn't need to. This wasn't a return. It was a reckoning. They landed in the ruins of what had once been Geneva. No lights, no civilians, just wind howling through steel bones and broken monuments. Tarek waited at the edge of the landing zone, surrounded by silent sentries in matte black armor. Why here? Riven asked. Tarek nodded toward the horizon. There, half buried in dirt and snow, stood the old Federation embassy. Or what was left of it, a few walls, and the tree, the one from the Greenland vault. Somehow it had survived, small, twisted, but alive. Riven walked to it slowly, every step heavier than the last. He reached out, touched one brittle leaf. It didn't fall. They laughed at this, he said, called it dirt and wood. Tarek stepped beside him. And still it lives. Riven nodded once, then turned to the sky. Above, the stars had begun to vanish behind the movement of 1,000 ships. Black, silent, formless. Earth's final fleet, no names, no numbers, just judgment. They're gathering, Tarek said. The last remnants of the old systems, forming a new council, hoping we'll talk this time. Riven watched the stars. They always hope. Tarek's voice lowered. What do we say? Riven didn't answer. He didn't need to, because they'd already spoken. 59 worlds. Every sky turned black, every silence left behind. This was humanity now. Not diplomats, not soldiers, but memory, carried in steel and paid in ash. The summit was being held in the Veil, a dead region between systems, far from stars, where no gravity well dared form and even light moved slow. The perfect hiding place for cowards. The new council thought distance would buy them time. That Earth's silence meant tolerance. That humanity had finally found peace in its wrath. They were wrong. Commander Riven stood at the edge of the command deck aboard the dreadnought Vermilion, staring into the nothing beyond the view glass. No suns, no stations, just cold. Around him the crew ran without voice, motion sharp and disciplined. Human silence had replaced any need for spoken orders. The war had made them efficient. The aftermath made them something else. Predators. He wore full armor now, not because he needed protection, but because it was ritual. The black matte plating bore no rank, no insignia, no name. Only carbon scars from worlds that no longer existed. Lyrics, Diran, Unari, Palace, all gone. One of the comms officers stepped forward, her voice like gravel over ice. Target found. Signal triangulated from Vale's heart. 6 council ships docked to a neutral station, unarmed, broadcasting a request for ceasefire. Riven said nothing. He already knew what they would say, that it was time to stop. That enough blood had been spilled, that Earth had made its point, but the galaxy never remembered words. Only silence, only fire. Tarek's face appeared on the main screen. Hard lines, dim lighting, battlefields behind his eyes. Commander, orders are clear. No negotiations, no prisoners, no broadcast. You strike, and you leave. Riven gave a slow nod. Then he turned and prepared the blade. The drop pods cut through the black like falling stars. No sirens, no warnings. The station didn't detect the breach until it was too late. Riven hit the floor of Deck 1 in full silence, boots thudding on polished alloy. The station was pristine. White tiles, blue glass, air fresh and filtered. It reeked of civility. Seth landed beside him, rifle drawn. His armor hissed with static from the jump, but his eyes were steady. He scanned the hall and tapped the comm once. North Wing, no resistance. Security drones offline. They're waiting, Riven said. It wasn't fear that slowed his pace. It was certainty. They wanted Earth to see them as peaceful now, wanting to beg. But Earth didn't stop because someone begged. Earth stopped when no one could. They moved fast through the corridors. No unnecessary violence, just efficiency. 2 guards tried to draw plasma pistols. Seth ended them mid-motion. A third tried to run. Riven caught him with a single shot to the back of the skull. The council chamber was just ahead, sealed in translucent shielding. Blue light pulsed softly from within. Riven stepped forward. His reflection stared back at him. Black armor, blank visor, the shape of a ghost made solid. Then the doors hissed open, and Earth entered. 6 figures sat in a semicircle, high-backed chairs, formal robes, robes that had never known ash, faces that hadn't seen war, a Lyrics, a Solari, a Unari, a Fennery priest, a half-merged AI diplomat, and 1 human, pale, thin, Federation-born. Riven said nothing. The Unari stood first, tall, fragile, arms behind his back like a scholar. We've come to discuss peace. Riven didn't respond. The Lyrics stepped next. We acknowledge past errors, misjudgments, but Earth's retaliation. Riven took 1 step forward. They fell silent. He looked at the human. Name? The man straightened. Director Alrin, former chief of diplomatic. Riven shot him in the throat. He dropped without a sound. The others didn't move. He walked slowly into the center of the chamber. The AI adjusted its projection, shifting into a human-like form. Simulated calm. There are still billions across the galaxy, economies, worlds untouched. This cycle can end. Riven looked at it, then raised his rifle. End it then. The round shredded its emitter. The projection flickered, screamed, died. Seth stepped beside him, calm as a blade. Orders? Seal the chamber. The shielding doors slammed shut. Riven looked at the remaining 3. Speak. The Lyrics trembled. We didn't know what Earth was. We thought... You did, Riven interrupted. That's why you struck first. The Solari opened her mouth, then closed it. She stared at the floor. I want you to watch, Riven said, as we end the last whisper of your counsel, and I want you to understand this. He stepped closer. You did this, not us. Then he pulled the pin on the incendiary. Seth was already walking out. The screams didn't last long. Back aboard the Vermilion, Riven watched the chamber burn from orbit. The fire spread quick. No alarms. The system was rigged. No broadcasts made it out. Only a ripple, the kind you feel in deep space, the kind that warns others to stay silent. No more councils, no more unity, only consequence. He turned from the screen, back toward Earth. As the ship angled for return jump, Riven sat alone in the armory, helmet off, watching the scratches on his chest plate. Every line a name, every burn a place. Not for pride, not for memory, just for truth. The galaxy had always called Earth feral, barbaric, temporary. They were right. Humanity was temporary, because nothing could survive what Earth became, not even Earth itself. Seth appeared in the doorway. No words. Riven looked up. "What's left?" Seth hesitated. Then he said it. "One system." Riven's jaw tensed. "Name?" Seth's voice dropped low. "Solari Prime." The origin of the Treaty of 12, the planet that first signed Earth's rejection, the one that hosted the ambassador's execution on live feed. Riven stood. Slow, heavy, final, no words, because there were none left, only ash, only gravity, only the last world. The fleet hung above Solari Prime like a second night. Hundreds of ships, matte black, engines dimmed. They did not aim weapons or broadcast threats. They simply waited, their shadows stretching across the planet's bright oceans and silver cities. On the command deck of the Vermilion, Commander Riven stood motionless. The light from the planet painted faint reflections on his armor. Blue seas, white cloud bands, the soft curve of a world that still believed it was untouchable. Behind him, the crew worked in whispers. No battle commands, no countdowns, only systems checks, long silences, the sound of a species remembering how it had been mocked, starved, and erased from every map. Seth joined him at the window. "They sent a message," he said quietly. "They want to talk." Riven didn't look at him. "They'll expect a speech. What will you tell them?" He watched the world turn beneath them. Nothing. The message, the Solari transmission played once on the bridge. A calm, clipped voice, female, rehearsed, a diplomat's tone. "To the people of Earth, we acknowledge the cost of your suffering. Let this be the end. Let there be quiet between us again." Quiet. They had used that word once before, when they silenced Earth's first outpost on Mars, when they cut off the signals and let 10,000 humans die without a trace. They had called that quiet, too. Riven closed the channel. "Set relay to passive," he ordered. The comms officer obeyed. The fleet didn't answer, didn't move. It just stayed there, hanging in the dark, every ship a mirror of the same unspoken thought. You don't speak for us anymore. The ground hours passed before the first transports left orbit. Not to conquer, not to burn, to stand. Riven led them down through heavy clouds and slow rain. The landing field had once been ceremonial, a perfect circle of glass and gold. It cracked beneath their boots. The Solari delegation waited at the edge of the platform. Dozens of officials, no guards, every one of them draped in white. The oldest stepped forward, trembling. "You've come to end it?" Riven removed his helmet. His face was older than his years, pale, lined, the eyes of someone who had watched too many sons die. "No," he said, "to remember it." He reached into his belt pouch and drew out a small, sealed case. Inside was a single seed, dark, unremarkable, from the last tree of Greenland. He placed it on the ground between them. "This," he said, "is all we ever wanted you to respect." Then he turned away. No threats, no destruction, just a seed in the rain. The aftermath, for 3 days the fleet stayed in orbit. No one slept, no one spoke. On the surface, the Solari planted the seed. They didn't understand why. They did it anyway. By the fourth day, the ships began to leave, one by one, slipping into warp without sound or farewell. When the Vermilion's turn came, Riven stood at the viewport and watched the curve of Solari Prime fade to blue, then to silver, then to nothing. Seth broke the silence. "You think they'll remember?" Riven nodded once. "Yes." "And us?" He didn't answer. Earth again. The return to Earth was slow, deliberate. The homeworld was quiet now, forests regrown over ruins, oceans healing, sky pale and clean. The ships landed in silence across the old continents. Crews disembarked, not as conquerors, as survivors. Riven walked through the ruins of Geneva again. The small tree still stood where he had left it. The wind carried the smell of soil and rain, the kind of air that hadn't existed for decades. He knelt, pressed his hand to the dirt. Human fingerprints in the mud of home. Above him, the clouds broke, revealing a strip of blue sky so clear it looked almost unreal. He closed his eyes. For the first time, he didn't see fire. Epilogue. Years later, when other species finally dared to travel the old trade routes, they found what Earth had left behind. No occupied worlds, no banners, no claims, only silence, the kind that comes after an avalanche when the world itself holds its breath. And on Solari Prime, they found a tree growing in the center of a rain-washed